everyone, Savvy here, and welcome back to my series throughout May for Mental Health Month, where I talk about different mental health topics and how they kind of tie into the new novel that I'm working on right now. Just as a disclaimer, I'm only speaking about my personal experiences. I'm not like a professional in mental health. I don't have any like education in that or anything, but I'm in these videos to talk about like the own voices perspective of what I've written about in my novel and how it influenced me as a writer and what those experiences have been. So I hope you guys enjoy these videos. Today I'm here with Jane from Writing with Jane. I'm going to link her channel in the description below, and we are going to talk about our experiences with anxiety.
Yes. It's so much anxiety. I don't know if this room can handle
How much anxiety we have? Yeah. So a major theme in One Final Vinyl that I've been writing about is this like fear that your life doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Which is like such a vague fear to put into words.
Have you been diagnosed with anything?
I'm diagnosed with OCD and like generalized anxiety. Well, my therapist diagnosed me with generalized anxiety, and then I went to see a psychiatrist because I thought that I might have OCD and need to be medicated for it, and they determined yes. And now I'm on medication, and my life is like so much better since I went on medication. Like everything is way, way better.
Yeah, I have the same exact diagnosis.
Oh, cool!
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're the same person!
Twins!
We're twins!
So yeah, I know that feeling. And I'm really glad to be here and talking about this.
So I've made another video in the past, which I'll link to in the description below, when I was working on my video series related to Sculpt Yourself, and because that book deals a lot with body image, and I talked a little bit about like how me like having OCD kind of led to my body image issues. There's like a weird misconception that people with body image issues are like conceited or like only care about appearances or are superficial, but like that's not true. Like body image issues is as much like a mental health problem as anything else. In my case, thinking that my body looked like it didn't look, you know, like having like body dysmorphia basically, it was a result of like having OCD and being like specifically grossed out by the concept of bodies and being grossed out by like humans and body parts and like finding it just like so repulsive that like I couldn't see myself properly. I saw myself as like a disgusting thing. And that was also in Turtles All the Way Down, and I was like, I resonate with this, guys. So now what I'm trying to do in this is that like different kind of fear that like your life is meaningless, right? I was a kid who was like constantly having an existential crisis every 5 minutes, like when I was like a child. The first story I could think of was like when I was 5 years old, I was watching I Love Lucy on the TV, and it just hit me that like Lucille Ball is dead and I'm still watching her on TV, and like she's famous and she's accomplished everything she wanted to in life, but she's not conscious of any of that anymore because she's dead and has no perception of the world. And that, like, when
at 5 years old.
No, when that hit me, that, like, I don't know, does everyone remember, like, their first perception of what mortality is? Let me know in the description below if you remember your first perception of mortality and what that felt like, because I had an emotional breakdown about this. I started crying, and I was like, Mom, I figured out what death means, and she was like, oh God, I have no idea how to handle this.
I think people who have our condition, that's a very real aspect of it. And, like, for me, my experiences with death, it hit me in that sort of way, but mine was more personal, where it was a neighbor who died.
Oh God, that's terrible.
And, well, I mean, you know, he was old, and it happens, you know, that's just life. And, but it hit me in a way that it happened, like, during the summer, and I just remember it being like a really still summer day or summer evening, you know, when the shadows get like super long, and everything gets real quiet and like still, and it's got that like orange haze. I just remember associating that with that happening, and so now every single time, no matter what, I associate summer with death. And it's a whole loaded thing.
I would like spend my evenings, like take the photo album out and I'd stare at all the photos and think like, I wish I could go back to the moment in this photo because I was farther away from my death in this photo than I am now. Like,
it's interesting because I have that exact same scenario happen as a child. It's just your brain is really unkind to you.
Yep.
When it treats you this way, and I like to say that, where it's like your brain is being unkind to you, because it's like while your brain is a part of you, it can still hurt you.
Definitely.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're trying to hurt yourself. It's just saying that the chemicals that are firing off is affecting you in a certain way. And I think it's interesting to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Something that a lot of people still don't talk about.
Yeah, and I think I'm really glad that, like, mental health has been getting a lot more people talking about it nowadays, because, like, 20, 30 years ago, just like in the past couple decades, like, there's been such a revolution almost in it, and, like, people actually caring about it, and, like, there being medications you can take to get better, and, like, I'm so thankful for that, because when I'm not on medication, like, you can tell. Like, I get, like, manic. And
when did you get diagnosed officially?
I want to say 2015.
Okay.
So I just suffered through most of college. Yep. I, like, had a drinking problem.
Girl, like, we are the same person. Then I had to talk to my doctor to be like, hey, this is kind of what's happening. And she said, oh, well, we can try to change up your meds and try to get you back on track. Because, it's kind of a guessing game, because doctors still don't really know a whole lot about the brain.
Like, it's not exact science yet.
Yeah, and so, if you're being honest with yourself and saying, like, hey, is this a destructive behavior? Is this something that's, like, affecting your relationships or something like that? Obviously get some help, but it's really useful to be able to, like, have that personal reflection of being like, oh, this isn't really great, and maybe I should stop.
It's so hard when your brain is not honest with you to know when something you're thinking is, like, an accurate perception versus when it's, like, filtered through something being wrong.
Right.
And it's like,
can you think of something specifically?
Yeah, like, for example, like, I had body dysmorphia for a while, so, like, and that was, like, once I got medicated, so, like, I don't know if it was, like, a body dysmorphia diagnosis or if it was, like, just an inaccurate body perception from having OCD that, like, caused that. Again, I don't know exactly, I'm not a doctor, but basically, like, if I would never know, like, how I accurately looked. Like, I would think I was, like, way larger than I was, or like I would try to lose tons of weight because, like, I thought, like, I was, like, could not accurately see myself, and it was, like, not. Some people think, like, oh, you're just saying you're fat so people will tell you you're not or whatever, but that's not true. Like, I couldn't see differently, and, like, I couldn't accurately perceive it, and it's weird, and that's a hard thing to translate to somebody who hasn't experienced that, to, like, when your perception of something is not accurate, it's almost like a hallucination. Like, you're seeing something that isn't there, so I would see something that wasn't accurate, and, like, now, like, I have gained a lot of weight since high school. I've gained, like, 40 pounds since high school. It's hard to tell. Like, I don't know, like, if what I'm perceiving is accurate or not. And it's just hard to say. Yeah, and it's your brain trying to convince you, too, where, like, you can tell yourself so many times of being like, no, that's wrong. But then there's, like, that little voice in the back of your head that's like, but what if? And then it just spirals. And that's one of my favorite chapters from Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. If you haven't read it yet, you gotta read it. I also did a review of this video that I'll link to in the description below, because this book was just, it was everything to me. It really validated my experience, because there's an entire chapter in there where the main character is arguing with her own thoughts. And trying to battle this complete irrationality. And you can just see the struggle and the pain and just suffering that this character is going through. And you can't help but think, like, oh my god, that's me on the page. And I can tell that John Green did a lot of research, and a lot of it's from his own experience, too, I think. But he also trying to, like, portray it in an accurate way and an honest way, instead of where you see it a lot in Hollywood, where, like, OCD is just sort of boiled down to, like, somebody who's touching a light switch on and off, like, 3 times, or, like... what they don't show you is what's going on in your head, because it's like, if you're touching the light switch, there's a reason. I would have a thing where I would have to look at pictures at a certain angle, and, like, it was like, if I don't look at this picture, like, if people were in the picture, and I didn't look at the picture the right way, I was like, the people in the picture will die. And I'm like, obviously that's false. Like, there's absolutely no way those things could be connected. And you know that, and you're well aware of that. But you're like, but it takes like a half a second to just do it the right way. So like, what if you just did it just to be extra safe? And like, what if someone died and like you would regret it forever? So like, now then you do that, but you do that with every single action in your life, so everything takes 10 times longer.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's exhausting.
It's so exhausting.
It's just mentally taxing because
I know.
then you have to like, you're trying to fight with yourself and be like, oh, I don't want to do this, but then your brain's like, but you gotta.
You gotta do it. Yeah.
And you're like, why? And your brain's like, cause you gotta. And
oh my god, it's the worst.
It never stops. And I didn't think that it wasn't normal for the longest time.
I thought it was just a thing that everyone experienced but just didn't talk about it.
I think it's really interesting that you sort of noticed your own behavior as being abnormal. It was thanks to my husband. He, you know, I was sort of playing it off as a joke. This is when we had first started dating.
Yeah.
And I was an undergrad in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sort of offhandedly just like talking about just kind of the stuff that I went through as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of played it off as a joke. And I didn't think anything of it until he looked at me kind of with this look on his face being like, hey, I think that's, you need to go talk to somebody about that.
Yeah.
And he was super right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I honestly, thanks to him and him recognizing that something was going on, that he kind of took me out of it and helped me see.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about your situation, but me growing up, you know, I love my parents. They're super supportive and everything like that, but I don't think they knew how to handle me. Do you have a similar?
I don't know. I mean, my parents, they're very supportive people also. Like, I don't know if they would have known how to handle it or not because, like, I just never brought it up.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, like, I don't know why I didn't think to because, like, I'm a pretty open person. Like, I kind of just, whatever comes into my mind, I say it for the most part. And, like, I'm pretty open with other people and I'm not very shy about anything. Except that I didn't really talk about because I didn't know if it would come off as, like, insane. And I remember the first time I was talking to Tyler about it, it was also, we were seniors in high school, and I was telling him about, like, I was just like, I have these weird urges to, like, look at things the right way or, like, touch things in certain, like I have to, like, look at something at a certain angle or touch something from the top down. Otherwise, I'm worried that, like, all these bad things are going to happen. And he was like, that isn't normal. And I was like, I didn't know if it was just one of those things that everyone had to some extent. And it's not, turns out. So if you're watching this and you're like, no, I don't experience that at all, that's because you don't have OCD. And if you do experience it, then maybe you ask a therapist or something. I don't know. Up to you.